The fog was thick at Heathrow Airport that Tuesday morning in November. James Mitchell had been working as a Royal Protection Officer for 15 years. He knew every corner of the private terminal where important people came and went. On this cold morning, something felt different. James was checking his watch when he heard voices near the VIP gate. It was only 7 in the morning, but someone was already there. He walked closer to see what was happening. The voices were getting louder, and one of them sounded familiar. Through the glass doors, James saw a woman with blonde hair. She was wearing a dark coat and holding a small leather bag close to her chest. The woman was talking fast to a man in a black suit. James looked more carefully and his heart skipped a beat. It was Queen Camilla. This was very strange. Royal family members never traveled without proper planning. There were always many security guards, official cars, and lots of paperwork. But here was the Queen Consort with just one bodyguard and a small bag. James moved closer to listen. Camilla was speaking in a sharp voice to her bodyguard. "We need to leave now," she said. "The flight is ready." "Why are we waiting?" The bodyguard looked nervous. He kept looking at his phone and then at Camilla. "Ma'am, we should wait for the official clearance," he said quietly. "No," Camilla said loudly. "We leave now. I don't want to wait anymore." James had never seen the Queen Consort act this way. She was always calm and polite in public. But today she looked scared and angry at the same time. Her hands were shaking as she held her bag. The bodyguard tried to calm her down. "Ma'am, please. The airport needs to check some things first." Camilla looked around the terminal. Her eyes were wide with worry. "They can check later. I need to get on that plane right now." James knew something was very wrong. In all his years of protecting royal family members, he had never seen them act like this. They always followed the rules. They always waited for proper security checks. But Camilla was acting like someone who was running away. He watched as Camilla walked toward the departure gate. Her steps were quick and nervous. The small leather bag never left her hands. She held it like it contained something very important or very dangerous. The bodyguard followed her, but he looked confused. He kept trying to call someone on his phone, but no one was answering. This made James even more suspicious. Royal bodyguards always had backup. They always had people to call. But this man seemed to be alone. James decided to get closer. He walked toward the gate, pretending to check security cameras. As he got near, he could hear Camilla talking to airport staff. "I need to board the plane to Switzerland now," she told a woman behind the counter. The airport worker looked at her computer screen. "I'm sorry, but I don't see the proper royal travel documents here." Camilla's face turned red. "I am the Queen Consort of England. I don't need special papers to travel." "Ma'am, even royal family members need proper clearance for international flights," the worker explained politely. Camilla slammed her hand on the counter. The sound echoed through the quiet terminal. "This is ridiculous. I demand to speak to your supervisor." James had seen enough. He quietly called his boss on his radio. "This is Mitchell at Terminal 5. We have a situation with a royal family member. I need backup immediately." His supervisor's voice came through the radio. "What kind of situation, Mitchell?" "Queen Camilla is here trying to leave the country without proper documentation. She's acting very strange. Something is definitely wrong." While James was talking on his radio, he kept watching Camilla. She was pacing back and forth near the gate. Her bodyguard was still trying to make phone calls, but his face showed that he wasn't getting the answers he needed. The airport supervisor arrived at the counter. He was a tall man with gray hair who had worked at Heathrow for 20 years. He had dealt with important people before, but even he looked surprised to see the Queen Consort there without proper arrangements. "Your Majesty," he said with a bow. "How can we help you today?" Camilla looked at him with desperate eyes. "I need to get on the flight to Switzerland. It's very important." The supervisor looked at his computer. "I understand, but we need to verify your travel authorization. For security reasons, all royal travel must be pre-approved." "I don't have time for this," Camilla shouted. Several other passengers in the terminal turned to look at her. "Every minute we wait puts me in more danger." James felt his blood run cold. Danger? What kind of danger was the Queen Consort talking about? Was someone threatening her? Was this why she was trying to leave the country so quickly? The bodyguard finally managed to reach someone on his phone. James watched as the man's face went pale while he listened to whoever was on the other end. When he hung up, he walked quickly to Camilla. "Ma'am," he whispered in her ear, "we have a problem. The palace doesn't know about this trip. Camilla's eyes went wide with panic. What do you mean they don't know? I just spoke to the head of security. No one authorized this travel. They're asking questions about where you are. James saw Camilla grab the bodyguard's arm. You promised me this would work, she hissed. You said everything was arranged. I thought it was, ma'am. But something has gone wrong. James knew he had to act fast. More Royal Protection officers would arrive soon. But until then, he was responsible for handling the situation. He approached Camilla and her bodyguard carefully. Excuse me, he said politely. I'm Officer Mitchell from Royal Protection. I need to verify your travel documents. Camilla looked at him with fear in her eyes. For a moment, James thought she might run away. But instead, she held her leather bag even tighter and took a step back. I don't need to show you anything, she said in a shaking voice. James smiled gently, trying not to scare her more. Ma'am, it's just routine. We need to make sure everything is safe and legal. But as he spoke, James noticed something that made his heart race. Camilla's small leather bag was bulging with papers. Through a small opening at the top, he could see official-looking documents with red seals. These looked like government papers, the kind that should never leave secure buildings. The question that filled James's mind was simple but terrifying. What exactly was Queen Camilla trying to take out of the country? James Mitchell stood in front of Queen Camilla, trying to stay calm. His 15 years of training told him that something was very wrong with this situation. Royal family members never traveled like this. They never showed up at airports without proper planning and security teams. Ma'am, I just need to see your travel authorization, James said again, keeping his voice gentle but firm. Camilla looked around the terminal like a trapped animal. Her bodyguard stepped forward and pulled out some papers from his jacket pocket. The papers looked new, like they had been printed just that morning. Here are the documents, the bodyguard said, handing them to James. James looked at the papers carefully. They had the right letterhead from the royal household, but something felt wrong about them. The signatures looked rushed, and there were no official stamps that usually came with royal travel papers. Most importantly, there was no advanced security clearance code. These papers are missing some important information, James told them. Where's the security clearance number? The bodyguard looked nervous. He glanced at Camilla, who was getting more upset by the minute. It's a rush job, he said. We didn't have time for all the usual paperwork. This made James even more suspicious. Royal travel was never a rush job. Even emergency trips had proper documentation. The royal family was too important to skip security steps. I need to contact the palace to verify these documents, James said. No, Camilla said quickly. You can't call the palace. This trip is private. Very private. James had never heard of a private royal trip that was secret from the palace itself. The queen consort couldn't just decide to leave the country without anyone knowing. It was against all security rules. Behind James, he could hear footsteps. His backup team was arriving. 3 more Royal Protection officers walked into the terminal, along with 2 airport security guards. James felt relieved to have help. Camilla saw the new officers and became more panicked. Why are all these people here? She demanded. I just want to catch my flight. Officer Sarah Chen, James's partner, walked up to them. She had been doing royal protection for 8 years and was very good at handling difficult situations. Good morning, Your Majesty, Sarah said with a polite smile. We're just here to make sure your travel goes smoothly. But Camilla wasn't fooled. You're here to stop me from leaving, she said accusingly. Someone called you to stop me. No one called us to stop you, Sarah explained. But we do need to follow proper procedures. All royal travel must be verified for security reasons. The bodyguard whispered something in Camilla's ear. James couldn't hear what he said, but it made Camilla even more upset. She clutched her leather bag tighter and looked toward the departure gate. The plane is ready, she said. I need to get on it now. James stepped closer to the bodyguard. Can I speak with you privately? He asked. They walked a few steps away from Camilla. James kept his voice low. What's really going on here? This isn't normal royal travel. The bodyguard looked around to make sure no one else could hear them. She came to me yesterday night, he whispered. She said she needed to leave the country immediately. She offered me a lot of money to arrange this trip quietly. Did she say why she needed to leave? She said someone was after her. She said she had done something terrible and needed to get away before people found out. James felt his stomach drop. This was much worse than he thought. What kind of terrible thing? I don't know. She wouldn't tell me. But she was very scared. She kept saying that her life would be ruined if certain people discovered what she had done. James looked back at Camilla. She was pacing near the gate, checking her watch every few seconds. The leather bag never left her hands. Whatever was in that bag, it was important enough to make her risk everything to take it out of the country. "Did you really arrange this trip without telling the palace?" James asked the bodyguard. The man nodded sadly. "She said she would pay me £50,000 to keep it quiet. My daughter needs surgery and I need the money. I thought it would just be a quick trip. I didn't think anyone would find out." James felt sorry for the man, but he had a job to do. "You know this is illegal, right? You can't help royal family members leave the country without proper authorization." "I know," the bodyguard said quietly, "but she seemed so desperate. And the money. My family really needs it." Meanwhile, Sarah was trying to keep Camilla calm. But the queen consort was getting more agitated by the minute. "How long is this going to take?" Camilla demanded. "The plane needs to leave soon." "We're working as quickly as we can," Sarah assured her. "But we need to make sure everything is legal and safe." Camilla laughed bitterly. "Safe? You think I'm not safe here in England?" This comment caught Sarah's attention. "Are you in danger, ma'am? Is someone threatening you?" For a moment, Camilla looked like she wanted to tell the truth. Her face softened and James could see tears forming in her eyes. But then she seemed to remember something and her expression became hard again. "I'm not in physical danger," she said carefully. "But there are other kinds of danger. Sometimes running away is the only option." James returned to the group. He had made a decision. "Your Majesty, I'm going to have to ask you to come with us to a private room. We need to sort this out properly." Camilla's face went white. "You're arresting me?" "No, ma'am. We just need to verify your travel documents and make sure you're safe. It's standard procedure when there are irregularities." "Irregularities?" Camilla's voice was getting higher. "I am the Queen Consort of England. I don't have irregularities." But even as she protested, James could see that she knew the game was up. Her shoulders slumped and she looked defeated. She was still holding her leather bag tightly, but now it seemed more like she was protecting it than just carrying it. The airport supervisor approached them again. "I'm sorry, but if we can't verify the travel documents, we can't allow departure. It's international law." Camilla looked at the departure gate one more time. Her flight to Switzerland was boarding, but she wouldn't be getting on it. James watched as other passengers walked past them toward the plane. Normal people with normal problems, not like the royal drama that was unfolding right here in the terminal. "Fine," Camilla said finally. "Let's go to your private room. But I want you to know that you're all making a terrible mistake." As they walked toward the security office, James noticed that Camilla kept looking back at the departure gate. She was watching her escape plan disappear, and the fear in her eyes was growing stronger. Whatever was in that leather bag, and whatever terrible thing Camilla thought she had done, James knew that this story was just beginning. The real questions would start once they got to the private room and could examine everything properly. The Queen Consort was about to face the biggest crisis of her royal life, and James Mitchell was right in the middle of it. The private security office at Heathrow Airport was a small windowless room with gray walls and bright fluorescent lights. James Mitchell had been in this room many times before, but never with a member of the royal family. Usually it was for drug dealers or people with fake passports. This situation was completely different. Queen Camilla sat in a plastic chair, still clutching her leather bag. She hadn't let go of it since arriving at the airport. Her bodyguard sat in another chair nearby, looking ashamed and worried. Sarah Chen stood by the door, making sure no one could leave or enter without permission. James sat across from Camilla at a small metal table. He had called his supervisor 20 minutes ago, and more senior officers were on their way. But for now, he had to handle this delicate situation by himself. "Your Majesty," James began carefully, "we need to understand what's happening here. This kind of travel arrangement is very unusual." Camilla stared at the table without speaking. Her hands were shaking slightly as she held her bag. James could see that whatever was inside must be very important to her. "I know this is uncomfortable," James continued, "but we're just trying to help. If you're in some kind of trouble, we can protect you." At the word protect, Camilla looked up sharply. "Protect me?" She laughed bitterly. "You people can't protect me from what's coming." "No one can." Sarah stepped forward. "What's coming, ma'am?" Are you expecting something bad to happen? Camilla closed her eyes and took a deep breath. You don't understand. When people find out what I've done, my life will be over. King Charles will hate me. The whole country will hate me. I'll lose everything. James exchanged a worried look with Sarah. This was more serious than they had thought. What have you done that's so terrible? He asked gently. For a moment it looked like Camilla might answer. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. She shook her head and held her bag even tighter. I can't tell you, she whispered. If I tell you, you'll have to report it, and then it will be in the newspapers by tomorrow. The bodyguard spoke up from his corner. Ma'am, maybe it would be better to tell them. These officers might be able to help. Camilla glared at him angrily. You've helped enough. This is all your fault. You said we could leave quietly. I tried my best, the bodyguard said sadly. But the palace security is too good. They always find out about unauthorized travel. James was getting more curious about what was in Camilla's bag. She was protecting it like it contained state secrets or something equally dangerous. He decided to take a direct approach. Your Majesty, I need to ask about your bag. You've been holding it very tightly. Is there something important inside? Camilla's eyes flashed with panic. My bag is private. You can't look inside it. Actually, ma'am, we can, Sarah explained. When there are security concerns about international travel, we have the right to inspect all belongings. No. Camilla stood up quickly, holding the bag against her chest. You can't touch my bag. I'm a member of the royal family. Being royal doesn't mean you're above the law, James said firmly but politely. If you're trying to take something out of the country illegally, we need to know about it. Camilla began pacing around the small room. This is insane. I'm the queen consort. I should be able to travel wherever I want with whatever I want. Not if it's stolen or classified, Sarah said quietly. The word stolen made Camilla stop pacing. She stared at Sarah with wide eyes. Who said anything about stolen? No one, Sarah replied. But your behavior suggests you have something you shouldn't have. James's radio crackled. His supervisor's voice came through. Mitchell, what's your status? I'm 5 minutes away with a senior team. James picked up his radio. We have the subject secured in room 3. She's refusing to cooperate with bag inspection. Requesting immediate backup for search procedures. Copy that. Don't let anyone leave until we arrive. Camilla heard this conversation and became even more agitated. Senior team? What kind of senior team? Ma'am, when members of the royal family are involved in security situations, we have to follow special procedures, James explained. Senior officers need to handle this properly. Security situation? Camilla's voice was getting higher and more panicked. I'm not a security threat. I'm just trying to leave the country. Then why won't you let us look in your bag? Sarah asked. If there's nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide. Camilla sat down again, still holding her bag. Tears were starting to form in her eyes. You don't understand. If people see what's in here, it will destroy everything. King Charles will never forgive me. The monarchy will be damaged. This made James very worried. What could possibly be in that bag that would damage the monarchy? His mind raced with possibilities. Secret documents? Evidence of some scandal? Photos of something embarrassing? Your Majesty, James said softly, whatever is in that bag, hiding it won't make the problem go away. If you've done something wrong, running away to Switzerland won't fix it. Camilla wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I thought if I could just disappear for a while, maybe people would forget. Maybe I could figure out a way to make it right. Make what right? Sarah asked. But before Camilla could answer, there was a knock on the door. James opened it to find his supervisor, Chief Inspector Williams, along with 2 other senior officers. They looked very serious. Mitchell, Chief Inspector Williams said, we need to take over this situation. We've been in contact with MI5. James felt his stomach drop. MI5 was the British intelligence service. They only got involved when national security was at risk. What had Camilla done that was serious enough to involve the intelligence services? Camilla saw the new officers and went very pale. MI5? Why is MI5 involved? Chief Inspector Williams looked at her seriously. Ma'am, we have reason to believe you may be in possession of classified government documents. That's a matter of national security. Camilla started to speak, then stopped. She looked down at her bag, then back at the officers. Your Majesty, Chief Inspector Williams continued, I'm going to have to insist that you allow us to inspect your bag. If you refuse, we'll have to consider you a flight risk and a potential threat to national security." Camilla closed her eyes and sat quietly for a long moment. James could see that she was trying to decide what to do. The room was completely silent except for the humming of the fluorescent lights overhead. Finally, she opened her eyes and looked directly at Chief Inspector Williams. "If I show you what's in my bag, will you promise to keep it quiet until I can explain everything to King Charles myself?" "Ma'am, I can't make promises about classified material, but I can assure you that we'll handle this matter with the discretion it deserves." Camilla nodded slowly. Her hands were shaking as she placed the leather bag on the metal table. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she whispered. James watched as she slowly unzipped the bag. Whatever was inside was about to change everything. The leather bag sat on the metal table like a bomb waiting to explode. Queen Camilla's hands trembled as she reached for the zipper. James Mitchell watched carefully, along with Chief Inspector Williams and the other officers. The small room felt very tense. Camilla pulled the zipper open slowly. Inside the bag, James could see thick stacks of papers and documents. Some had red wax seals, others had official government letterheads. There were also several manila envelopes and what looked like photographs. Chief Inspector Williams put on plastic gloves and carefully began removing items from the bag. The first thing he pulled out was a stack of letters tied together with a ribbon. The letters had Buckingham Palace printed at the top. "These appear to be private correspondence," he said, reading the addresses on the envelopes. Next, he pulled out a folder marked confidential in red letters. Inside were documents with government department logos. James could see eyes-only stamps on several pages. "Your Majesty," Chief Inspector Williams said seriously, "these are classified government briefings." "How did you get these?" Camilla didn't answer. She just stared at the table while tears rolled down her cheeks. The inspector continued removing items. There were photographs of official documents, copies of financial records, and several files marked State Secret. Each item made the situation worse. Sarah Chen gasped when she saw one particular document. "That's a security briefing about royal protection. Procedures," she whispered to James. "That information could put the entire royal family in danger if it got into the wrong hands." James felt sick to his stomach. He had spent his whole career protecting the royal family, and now he was looking at their most private and secret information spread out on a table. Chief Inspector Williams picked up a manila envelope that was heavier than the others. Inside were what looked like financial documents from Swiss banks, along with business cards from several European journalists. "Ma'am," he said to Camilla, "it appears you were planning to sell these documents. Is that correct?" Camilla finally looked up. Her face was red from crying and her voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't want to. I never wanted to do any of this. But you were going to sell royal secrets to foreign journalists?" The inspector pressed. "I didn't have a choice," Camilla suddenly shouted. "Do you know what it's like to live under constant pressure? Do you know what it's like to have no money of your own while everyone thinks you're rich?" James was confused. "No money? But you're part of the royal family." Camilla laughed bitterly. "The royal family doesn't just give you money. Everything is controlled. Every expense is watched. And I had debts from before I married Charles. Big debts that I've been hiding for years." She wiped her nose with a tissue. The debts kept growing. The interest kept adding up. "I borrowed money from the wrong people and they started threatening me." Chief Inspector Williams sat down across from her. "What kind of people?" "Dangerous people. People who loan money to desperate individuals and then make their lives hell when they can't pay back. They said they would expose my financial problems to the newspapers if I didn't pay them back immediately." Sarah leaned forward. "How much money do you owe?" £3 million, Camilla whispered. £3 million that I borrowed over the years to maintain my lifestyle before I became queen consort. James couldn't believe what he was hearing. £3 million was an enormous amount of money. No wonder she was desperate. "So you decided to steal government secrets and sell them?" Chief Inspector Williams asked. "I didn't steal them," Camilla protested. "I had access to them as part of my royal duties. I attend briefings. I see documents. I just started making copies." The inspector picked up one of the photographs. "You photographed classified documents with your phone?" Camilla nodded shamefully. "It started small. Just a few documents that I thought might be worth something to journalists. But then the Swiss contact said he would pay much more for really secret information. Swiss contact? A man named Heinrich Müller. He represents a group of European tabloids. He approached me 6 months ago through an encrypted messaging app. He said he knew about my financial problems and could help. James felt angry. Someone had targeted the Queen Consort when she was vulnerable, and she had fallen into their trap. How much was he going to pay you for these documents? Chief Inspector Williams asked. £5 million, Camilla said quietly. Enough to pay off my debts and have some left over to disappear somewhere safe. The room went silent. £5 million for royal secrets was an enormous amount of money. This wasn't just about personal financial problems anymore. This was about national security being sold to foreign interests. Chief Inspector Williams picked up his radio. This is Williams. I need a direct line to MI5 headquarters immediately. We have a code red situation involving classified material. Code red meant the highest level of security threat. James had never been involved in a code red situation before. While they waited for MI5 to call back, James looked through more of the documents. There were briefings about government policy, private communications between King Charles and political leaders, and detailed security information about royal residences. Your Majesty, he said, do you realize that some of this information could be used to hurt the king or other royal family members? Camilla broke down completely. I know it was wrong. But I was so scared. The people I owe money to said they would hurt me if I didn't pay them back. They knew where I lived, where I went shopping, everything about my daily routine. Sarah handed her another tissue. Why didn't you tell King Charles about the debt? He could have helped you. I was too ashamed, Camilla sobbed. I've made so many mistakes with money over the years. Charles has already helped me before, and I promised him I would never get into financial trouble again. How could I tell him I owed £3 million to dangerous people? The radio crackled. Williams, this is MI5 Control. We're sending a team to your location immediately. Do not let anyone leave, and do not discuss this situation with anyone outside your immediate team. Copy that, Chief Inspector Williams replied. He turned to Camilla. Your Majesty, I'm afraid this situation is now out of our hands. MI5 will need to question you about every document in this bag and everyone you've been in contact with. Camilla nodded sadly. I know, I've ruined everything. Charles will never forgive me. The royal family will probably ask me to leave. James felt sorry for her despite what she had done. She had made terrible choices, but it was clear that she had been desperate and scared. What happens now? She asked. Chief Inspector Williams looked at the pile of documents on the table. Now we wait for MI5 to arrive. They'll want to know everything about this Heinrich Müller and how much classified information you've already shared with him. As they sat in the quiet room waiting for the intelligence agents to arrive, James realized that this was the biggest royal scandal he had ever been involved in. The Queen Consort had been caught trying to flee the country with state secrets. The story would eventually come out, and it would shock the entire nation. But first, they needed to find out exactly how much damage had already been done to British national security. 30 minutes later, 3 people in dark suits arrived at the airport security office. They showed their MI5 identification to Chief Inspector Williams and immediately took control of the situation. James Mitchell had never worked with intelligence agents before, and they made him nervous. The lead agent was a tall woman with short gray hair named Agent Rebecca Foster. She looked at the documents spread across the table and then at Queen Camilla, who was still crying quietly in her chair. Your Majesty, Agent Foster said in a calm but serious voice, I'm Agent Foster from MI5. We need to discuss the classified material you were attempting to remove from the country. Camilla wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. I've already told these officers everything. I was desperate. I made terrible mistakes. We need to know exactly what information you've already shared with foreign contacts, Agent Foster continued. This is a matter of national security. One of the other MI5 agents was photographing all the documents with a special camera. The third agent was setting up a recording device on the table. Ma'am, Agent Foster said, I need to inform you that this conversation is being recorded for security purposes. Do you understand? Camilla nodded weakly. Yes, I understand. Agent Foster sat down across from Camilla and opened a thick file. Let's start with Heinrich Müller. When did he first contact you? It was about 6 months ago, Camilla said. I received a message on an encrypted app on my phone. He said he knew about my financial problems and could help me solve them. How did he know about your financial problems? Camilla looked ashamed. I don't know. He seemed to know everything about me. He knew how much money I owed, who I owed it to, even details about my shopping habits. James exchanged a worried look with Sarah. This Heinrich Mueller sounded like a professional intelligence operative, not just a journalist buying gossip. What exactly did he offer you? Agent Foster asked. He said European tabloids would pay good money for inside information about the royal family. At first, he just wanted harmless things like what the king ate for breakfast or what TV shows he watched. But it escalated? Yes, Camilla whispered. The harmless information only paid a few £1,000s at a time. It wasn't nearly enough to solve my debt problem. So Heinrich kept asking for more important information. Agent Foster made notes in her file. When did you first give him classified government documents? 3 months ago. He asked for details about a trade meeting between King Charles and some foreign diplomats. He said it was just for background information for news articles. James felt sick. 3 months ago, there had been an important trade summit at Buckingham Palace. If details about those private discussions had been leaked to foreign journalists, it could have damaged important international relationships. How much did he pay you for that information? £50,000, Camilla said quietly. Agent Foster looked up sharply. £50,000 for one document? I thought it was because the information was very valuable for news stories, Camilla explained. I didn't realize at the time that Heinrich might be working for foreign intelligence services. This comment made everyone in the room tense. If Heinrich Müller was actually a foreign spy instead of just a journalist, then this situation was much worse than anyone had imagined. What made you think he might be a spy? Agent Foster asked. Camilla hesitated. Last month, he started asking very specific questions about British military information and details about government security procedures. Those aren't the kinds of things journalists usually care about. But you continued to provide information? I was in too deep by then, Camilla said desperately. The people I owed money to were getting more threatening. They said they would hurt me physically if I didn't pay them soon. Heinrich was offering enough money to solve all my problems. Agent Foster picked up one of the documents from the table. This briefing contains details about British nuclear security procedures. Did you give this type of information to Heinrich Müller? Camilla's face went completely white. Nuclear security? I didn't read all the documents carefully. I just photographed whatever looked official and important. James couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Queen Consort had been randomly photographing classified documents without even knowing what they contained. She could have accidentally given away some of Britain's most important security secrets. Ma'am, Agent Foster said sternly, do you realize that nuclear security information in the wrong hands could endanger millions of people? Camilla began crying again. I didn't know. I was just taking pictures of papers. I didn't think about what the information could be used for. The second MI5 agent whispered something in Agent Foster's ear. She nodded and turned back to Camilla. We need to know exactly which documents you've already transmitted to Heinrich Müller. Can you remember? I think I sent him about 20 different files over the past 3 months, but I'm not sure exactly which ones. Agent Foster looked very concerned. 20 files of classified material? Maybe more, Camilla admitted. I wasn't keeping track carefully. The third MI5 agent was working on a laptop computer. Agent Foster, he said. I'm seeing encrypted communications between a UK phone number registered to Her Majesty and several European locations over the past 6 months. How many communications? Agent Foster asked. Over 200 messages plus dozens of file transfers. James felt like the room was spinning. 200 messages? This wasn't just a desperate woman making a few bad decisions. This was a systematic intelligence operation that had been going on for months. Agent Foster turned back to Camilla. Your Majesty, this is much more serious than we initially thought. You appear to have been operating as an unknowing intelligence asset for a foreign power. What does that mean? Camilla asked weakly. It means Heinrich Müller was likely using you to spy on the British government. You weren't just selling information to tabloids. You were providing classified intelligence to people who could use it against British interests. Camilla looked like she might faint. I never meant to hurt my country. I just wanted to solve my money problems. Agent Foster made more notes. We need to arrange for you to contact Heinrich Müller under our supervision. We want to see if we can trace his real identity and find out who he's working for. You want me to call him? Yes, but we'll be monitoring the conversation. We need to understand how much damage has been done and whether other British officials might be at risk. The lead agent picked up her phone and made a call. This is Foster. I need a full security briefing team at Heathrow immediately. We have a potential intelligence breach involving multiple classified documents. She hung up and looked at Camilla. Your Majesty, I'm afraid you'll need to remain in custody while we investigate the full extent of this situation. Custody? Camilla looked panicked. Am I being arrested? Not formally arrested, but you cannot be allowed to leave until we understand exactly what information has been compromised. This could affect national security at the highest levels. James realized that this story was far from over. What had started as a suspicious royal travel situation had become a major intelligence investigation. The Queen Consort had accidentally become involved in international espionage, and no one yet knew how much damage had been done to British security. The small airport security room suddenly felt like the center of a crisis that could affect the entire country. 2 hours later, the airport security office had been transformed into a temporary intelligence center. MI5 agents had brought computers, recording equipment, and secure communication devices. James Mitchell found himself in the middle of the biggest security investigation of his career. Agent Foster was working with technical specialists who were analyzing Queen Camilla's phone and computer communications. They had discovered much more than anyone expected. Your Majesty, Agent Foster said, looking up from her computer screen. We've been able to trace Heinrich Müller's real identity. His name is actually Viktor Petrov, and he works for Russian intelligence services. Camilla's face went completely pale. Russian intelligence? But he told me he was Swiss. He was lying about everything, Agent Foster explained. Viktor Petrov has been running intelligence operations across Europe for over 10 years. You were what we call an unwitting asset. Someone who provides information without realizing they're working for a foreign intelligence service. James felt a chill run down his spine. Russian spies had been using the Queen Consort to steal British secrets. This was the kind of story you saw in movies, not real life. Agent Foster continued reading from her screen. We've also discovered that Petrov has been in contact with at least 6 other people in positions with access to classified information. This appears to be a larger operation targeting multiple British officials. 6 other people? Camilla asked weakly. Government workers, military officers, and business leaders who handle sensitive information. Petrov seems to target people with financial problems or personal difficulties. Sarah Chen spoke up from her position by the door. So Camilla wasn't the only person he was manipulating? Correct. The Russians have been running what appears to be a systematic intelligence gathering operation in the UK. They identify vulnerable targets, offer them money to solve their problems, then gradually request more and more sensitive information. Agent Foster turned back to Camilla. We need you to help us contact Petrov one more time. We want to arrange a meeting where we can capture him. Camilla looked terrified. You want me to meet with him? What if he realizes something is wrong? We'll have agents protecting you at all times. But we need to get him to come to a location where we can arrest him safely. James watched as another MI5 agent brought in a stack of documents. These were printouts of all the classified information that Camilla had accidentally provided to the Russian agent over the past 6 months. The damage assessment is significant, the agent reported to Agent Foster. She transmitted information about military operations, diplomatic communications, nuclear security procedures, and economic policy discussions. Agent Foster looked very serious. How significant? Some of this information could compromise ongoing military operations. Other documents contain details about British intelligence capabilities that we definitely don't want foreign powers to know about. Camilla began crying again. I've destroyed everything, haven't I? I've hurt my country, damaged the monarchy, and put people in danger. Agent Foster's expression softened slightly. Ma'am, you were manipulated by professional intelligence officers. They specifically targeted you because of your access and your financial vulnerability. You're not the first person to fall into this kind of trap. But I am supposed to be Queen Consort, Camilla said through her tears. People trust me to protect royal and government secrets, not sell them to foreign countries. James felt sorry for her despite the seriousness of what she had done. She had been desperate and scared, and professional spies had taken advantage of her situation. Agent Foster's phone rang. She answered it and spoke quietly for several minutes before hanging up. "That was MI5 headquarters," she announced to the room. "We need to coordinate with several other government agencies. The Prime Minister has been briefed about this situation." "The Prime Minister knows?" Camilla looked even more upset. "Ma'am, when classified information at this level is compromised, we have to inform the highest levels of government. The Prime Minister needs to understand what information might have been leaked so he can adjust government policies accordingly." Another agent entered the room with more equipment. "Agent Foster, we've set up the secure communication line. We can monitor the call to Petrov whenever you're ready." Agent Foster looked at Camilla. "Are you prepared to make this call? We need you to sound normal and try to arrange a meeting with him." Camilla took a deep breath. "What should I say?" "Tell him you have additional high-value documents to provide, but you want to meet in person to ensure the transaction is secure. Suggest meeting at a hotel in London." James watched as the technical team prepared the recording equipment. They would trace the call and try to determine Petrov's exact location. If they were lucky, they might be able to arrest him within hours. "Remember," Agent Foster told Camilla, "act like everything is normal. Don't let him suspect that we've discovered his real identity." Camilla nodded and picked up her phone. Her hands were shaking as she scrolled through her contacts to find Heinrich Miller's number, which they now knew was actually Viktor Petrov. She dialed the number and put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear the conversation. After 3 rings, a man with a slight accent answered. "Hello, Camilla. I was wondering when you would call." "Hello, Heinrich," Camilla said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I have some additional documents that might interest you." "Excellent. What type of documents?" Camilla looked at Agent Foster, who was holding up cards with suggested responses. "Military planning documents and some diplomatic correspondence. Very sensitive material. That sounds valuable. When can we meet?" "I was thinking we could meet in London. Perhaps at the Savoy Hotel tomorrow evening." There was a pause on the other end of the line. James could see the technical agents working frantically to trace the call. "The Savoy is very public," Petrov said carefully. "Are you sure that's wise?" "I think it's safer to meet in a busy location," Camilla replied, reading from Agent Foster's cards. Another pause. "Is everything all right, Camilla? You sound different today." Agent Foster held up a card that said, "Stay calm." "I'm fine," Camilla said. "Just nervous about carrying such sensitive documents. I want to make sure this transaction goes smoothly." "I understand. Let me think about the location and call you back in 1 hour." The line went dead. Agent Foster immediately turned to her technical team. "Were you able to trace the call?" "Partially," one of them replied. "The signal was routed through several different countries, but we think he's somewhere in central London." "Central London?" James was surprised. "He's been operating from inside the UK this whole time?" "It appears so. Russian intelligence officers often work from within the countries they're targeting. It makes their operations more effective." Agent Foster looked at Camilla, who was exhausted and emotionally drained. "You did well, ma'am. Now we wait for him to call back and hopefully agree to the meeting." As they waited, James realized that this investigation was about to get much more complicated. They weren't just dealing with a royal scandal anymore. They were in the middle of an active counterintelligence operation against Russian spies operating in Britain. The next few hours would determine whether they could capture Viktor Petrov and find out the full extent of the damage to British national security. Exactly 1 hour later, Camilla's phone rang. Everyone in the room went quiet as she answered the call from Viktor Petrov, the Russian spy who had been pretending to be Heinrich Miller. "Hello, Camilla." His voice came through the speaker. "I've thought about our meeting location. Instead of the Savoy, let's meet at the Langham Hotel, room 412, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Agent Foster quickly wrote a note and showed it to Camilla. "Ask why he changed the location." "Why the change?" Camilla asked, trying to sound casual. "The Langham is more private. We can conduct our business without interruption. Don't worry, I've stayed there many times. It's perfectly safe." "All right," Camilla agreed. "I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. "Good, and Camilla? Come alone. Don't bring any security or companions. This transaction requires complete discretion." The call ended. Agent Foster immediately turned to her team. "I want full surveillance on the Langham Hotel within 2 hours. Set up recording equipment in room 412 and the surrounding rooms. James watched as the MI5 agents began planning what would essentially be a trap for the Russian spy. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. "What about Queen Camilla?" James asked. "Will she actually go to the meeting?" "Yes, but she'll be wearing recording devices and we'll have agents positioned throughout the hotel. She won't be in real danger." Camilla looked exhausted. "Do I have to do this? Can't you just arrest him at the hotel without me being there?" "Ma'am, if you don't show up, he'll become suspicious and probably disappear. We need him to feel safe, so he'll reveal information about his operation and his contacts." Agent Foster's phone rang. She answered it and spoke quietly before hanging up with a grim expression. "That was my supervisor," she announced. "We just received some very bad news. Viktor Petrov has been in contact with someone else. Someone much higher up in the government than we initially thought." "Who?" James asked. "We don't know yet, but the communication pattern suggests it's someone with access to cabinet-level classified information, someone who attends the same meetings as the Prime Minister." This news made everyone in the room very nervous. If there was a high-level government official working with Russian intelligence, it could compromise British national security at the highest levels. Agent Foster looked at Camilla seriously. "This is why tomorrow's meeting is so important. We need Petrov to reveal who his other contacts are." "What if he doesn't tell me?" Camilla asked. "You'll need to ask him directly. Tell him you're interested in expanding your cooperation. Ask if there are other people you could work with to provide different types of information." James could see that Camilla was scared about the meeting. Will she be safe? What if something goes wrong? "We'll have agents in the rooms on both sides of 412, in the hallway and in the lobby. The moment we think she's in danger, we'll move in." Agent Foster turned to Camilla. "Ma'am, I need to be honest with you. This meeting could be dangerous. If Petrov suspects you're working with us, he might try to hurt you." Camilla was quiet for a long moment. "I understand. But I have to do this, don't I? I have to try to fix the damage I've caused." "You don't have to do anything, ma'am. But your help could prevent other British officials from being compromised." While the MI5 agents continued planning, James noticed another officer entering the room. It was Chief Inspector Williams, and he looked very serious. "Agent Foster," he said, "I just received a call from Buckingham Palace. King Charles is demanding to know where Queen Camilla is. The palace staff realized she's missing." Agent Foster looked concerned. "What did you tell them?" "I told them she was involved in a security matter at the airport, but I couldn't provide details. But they're insisting on speaking with her immediately." This created a new problem. If King Charles found out what Camilla had been doing, he might interfere with the intelligence operation. But they couldn't keep lying to the King of England. "Ma'am," Agent Foster said to Camilla, "we need to decide how to handle this. Do you want to speak with King Charles now? Or should we wait until after tomorrow's meeting?" Camilla looked terrified. "If I tell Charles what I've done, he'll never forgive me. He might try to stop me from helping with the meeting. But if we don't tell him something, he might send royal security to look for you. That could complicate our operation." James could see that Camilla was struggling with an impossible choice. Tell her husband that she had been selling state secrets to Russian spies, or continue lying and risk ruining the intelligence operation. "Can we tell him a partial truth?" Camilla asked. "Maybe say that I discovered some security problems and I'm helping to investigate them." Agent Foster considered this. That might work temporarily, but after tomorrow's meeting, he'll need to know everything. "I understand," Camilla said quietly. "After we catch this Viktor Petrov, I'll tell Charles the whole truth." Agent Foster made arrangements for Camilla to call King Charles and explain that she was assisting with an important security investigation. The call would be monitored to make sure she didn't accidentally reveal details that could compromise the operation. As evening approached, the MI5 team began finalizing their plans for tomorrow's trap at the Langham Hotel. James realized he was witnessing history in the making, the capture of a major Russian intelligence operation on British soil. But he also felt sorry for Queen Camilla, who would have to face the consequences of her actions once this was all over. Even if she helped catch the Russian spy, she had still betrayed her country's trust. Her life as a member of the royal family would never be the same. Tomorrow's meeting would determine not just whether they caught Viktor Petrov, but also whether Queen Camilla could begin to make amends for the terrible mistakes she had made. The small airport security room had become the command center for any operation that could change British intelligence history. And James Mitchell, A simple royal protection officer was right in the middle of it all. The next evening, James Mitchell stood in the lobby of the Langham Hotel wearing a waiter's uniform. He had volunteered to be part of the MI5 surveillance team for Queen Camilla's meeting with Viktor Petrov. After everything that had happened, he wanted to see this operation through to the end. Agent Foster's voice came through his earpiece. All units in position. Camilla should arrive in 10 minutes. James could see other undercover agents positioned around the hotel. There was a businessman reading a newspaper, a hotel guest checking in at the front desk, and several staff members who were actually armed MI5 operatives. At exactly 7:55 p.m., Queen Camilla entered the hotel lobby. She looked nervous but determined. She was wearing a small recording device hidden in her jewelry and a tracking device sewn into her coat. James watched as she walked to the elevator and pressed the button for the 4th floor. His heart was beating fast as he realized they were about to confront a dangerous Russian spy. "Target is moving to room 412, Agent Foster announced through the earpiece. All units maintain positions. In the MI5 command center set up in room 410, agents were monitoring multiple video feeds and listening to Camilla's recording device. James could hear everything through his earpiece as Camilla knocked on the door of room 412. "Come in," a man's voice said. "It's unlocked." Camilla entered the room. James could hear her footsteps on the carpet as she walked inside. "Hello, Heinrich," she said, using the fake name Viktor Petrov had given her. "Please sit down," Petrov replied. "Do you have the documents you mentioned?" "Yes," Camilla said. "But first I wanted to discuss expanding our arrangement." There was a pause. James could hear papers rustling as Petrov looked through fake documents that MI5 had prepared for Camilla to carry. "These are very good," Petrov said approvingly. "Very valuable information. You've done excellent work, thank you. But I was wondering, do you work with other people in similar positions? I have friends who might be interested in this type of arrangement." This was the crucial question. MI5 needed to know who else was providing information to Russian intelligence. "I do work with several other contacts," Petrov admitted. "There's a gentleman in the Defense Ministry who provides military information, and a lady who works in the Foreign Office." Agent Foster's voice came through James's earpiece. "He's giving us names." "Keep recording. Anyone else?" Camilla asked casually. "There's also someone very high up in government, someone who attends cabinet meetings with the Prime Minister. I can't tell you who, but they provide very valuable political intelligence." James felt his stomach tighten. A cabinet-level official was working with Russian spies. This was worse than anyone had imagined. "That sounds very impressive," Camilla said. "How long have you been doing this type of work?" "Many years," Petrov replied. "I've been building a network of contacts across the British government. It's taken a long time, but now I have access to information from almost every major department." Suddenly, James heard a concerning sound through his earpiece. Petrov's voice became suspicious. "Camilla, you're asking many questions tonight. Usually you just want to complete the transaction and leave." "I'm just curious about how this all works," Camilla replied. But James could hear nervousness in her voice. "Are you wearing some kind of recording device?" Petrov asked directly. Agent Foster's voice came through the earpiece. "All units prepare to move. Operation may be compromised." James heard Camilla's voice, now clearly frightened. "Of course not. Why would you think that?" "Because you sound different. And you're asking questions like someone who is gathering information for intelligence services." There was the sound of movement in the room. James could hear Petrov walking around, probably searching for hidden cameras or recording equipment. "I think this meeting is over," Petrov said coldly. "Wait," Camilla said desperately. "I have more documents you might want." "No, I think you have something else. I think you have MI5 agents listening to this conversation." Agent Foster's voice was urgent. "Move in now. All units converge on room 412. James ran toward the elevator, along with the other undercover agents. He could hear shouting and the sound of a struggle coming from room 412 through his earpiece. When the MI5 team burst into the room, they found Viktor Petrov holding a gun and Queen Camilla cowering behind a chair. The situation had become very dangerous very quickly. "Drop your weapon," Agent Foster shouted. "You're surrounded." Petrov looked around the room at the armed agents pointing guns at him. He realized he had no chance of escape. "You used her to trap me," he said, looking at Camilla with disgust. "Drop the gun and put your hands in the air," Agent Foster repeated. After a tense moment, Petrov placed his gun on the floor and raised his hands. 2 agents immediately moved in to arrest him while others secured the weapon. "Victor Petrov," Agent Foster announced. "You're under arrest for espionage against the British government." As the agents handcuffed Petrov, he looked at Camilla one last time. "You have no idea how many people you've just destroyed," he said coldly. "My network includes people you would never suspect." James watched as they led the Russian spy away. Queen Camilla was shaking from fear and adrenaline, but she was safe. "You did very well, ma'am," Agent Foster told her. "We got enough information to identify his other contacts." Over the following weeks, MI5 used the information from Petrov's arrest to uncover the entire Russian spy network. They arrested 6 other people, including a Defense Ministry official and a Foreign Office administrator. The cabinet-level contact turned out to be an assistant to a senior minister, not a minister themselves, which was still serious but not as catastrophic as feared. For Queen Camilla, the consequences were severe but not criminal. King Charles was devastated when he learned the truth, but after several difficult conversations, he agreed to support her through the crisis. She underwent extensive security debriefing and psychological counseling. The story was never made public. The government and royal family worked together to create a cover story about Camilla taking a brief medical leave for stress treatment. The real truth was classified at the highest levels. James Mitchell received a commendation for his role in uncovering and helping to resolve the spy operation. He continued working in royal protection, but he never forgot the day he caught the Queen Consort trying to flee the country with state secrets. Victor Petrov was quietly deported to Russia in exchange for British agents held by the Russians. His spy network was completely dismantled, dealing a significant blow to Russian intelligence operations in Britain. 3 months later, Queen Camilla returned to her royal duties. She was different, more careful, more aware of the weight of her responsibilities. She had learned a terrible lesson about the consequences of desperation and the importance of asking for help when in trouble. The leather bag that had contained so many secrets was locked away in MI5's evidence vault, a reminder of how close Britain had come to a major intelligence disaster. And James Mitchell went back to his regular duties, protecting the royal family and keeping their secrets safe, just as he had always done and always would do.